I'm Bruna, film and TV producer, female founder, and CEO. And this is Invisible Roadmap, a show about the people who built extraordinary lives without a roadmap. No connections, no shortcuts, just grit, courage, and belief. Each week, I sit down with successful people to uncover the decisions, the failures, and the moments that define their lives, and the unpaved paths they took to get there. And then at what point do you write the script for Terminator?
The second I got back, when I was gone, my car got repossessed, I was sleeping on my friend's couch. He was one of these four guys.
Things are looking up.
Things are looking up. No, it's like, okay, you got fired off your first movie, you're broke, your car got repossessed, you're sleeping on your friend's couch. I had no place to go but up, right?
Yeah.
So he and I noodled around with a couple of story ideas, and I got the idea for the Terminator. I actually had it when I was in Rome. I'd been in Rome as part of the Piranha thing because it was an Italian producer. And when I was in Rome, I was sick as a dog, had a high fever, and I had this dream of the Terminator chrome skeleton.
The entire world wants your dreams. You know that, right? Like,
oh man,
the entire world is like, why can't I dream those ideas that this guy dreams?
Well, look, everybody dreams. It's a question of, do you remember them, and do you value the imagery? You know, because your mind is putting together pieces of images. You know, and I always say that we are Gen AI models to ourselves, right? We're trained on everything we've ever seen, every piece of media we've ever absorbed, every movie, every drawing, every novel. It's all part of our training data, and then it just crunches, and it crunches in our subconscious, and in our downtime, that image generator's running, and it's just popping things up for you, and then another part of your mind, which is probably the part that writes memory, is trying to organize it into a story, because I believe that the reason we tell stories is because that's how we remember our life, as a story, as a series of events that have a causal relationship, even if they didn't, and even if we're remembering, if the story we remember is incorrect, because we're not a ring camera, we're not just a surveillance camera. We can't take in the amount of image data, sound data that we're perceiving all day, every day.
Smell data, all of it. I totally agree.
And you're going to store it in a 3-pound meat computer that has to do a bunch of other things as well, besides just store memory. And it's got to store it for optimally, 80, 90 years. How are you going to do that? That's I don't know, what's 100 trillion petabytes? You can't do it. So what you do is you remember little symbols of the things that happen. You remember, from this, I'll remember there was a table. There will be a file photo of you. There will be 5 brilliant things you said. That's the file.
So you have this script, you and Gal somehow get it financed, and you make what is really your first, like what I would perceive and call your first movie.
I call it my first film because it's the first film I actually got to direct and cut and finish, right? And write. So,
and what's the budget? Like 5 million?
4.5 below the line, and then Arnold.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Say no more.
Yeah, so I think Arnold was $1.5 million, I think,
Which back then, by the way, was crazy.
Pretty good payday.
Yeah, really good, really good. Yeah.
He wanted to do it, though. We weren't buying him. He wanted to do it. Yeah. His agent was holding him back from it because there were only 6 lines of dialogue.
Now, look, the truth is you never know. I mean, this is what I always say to people. People always say, did you know that was going to be a hit? Maybe if it was a Jim Cameron movie, I would say yes. But you don't ever know, right? He could sign up to 10 movies and they could all turn out completely differently to how he thinks they would.
Exactly. Yeah. From his perspective, he just read the script and he liked it. He liked the action. He liked the idea of it. He wanted to be involved. He was being proposed for the other guy, for Michael Biehn's character, for Reese, which wouldn't have worked.
No.
Too verbal a character. And Arnold's accent still stood in the way a little bit at that point. He eventually evolved past that.
So that goes on to become big hit.
Right. So we're accelerating.
This is like, is this a moment for you? Like, are you feeling in that moment, wow, my life's about to change? Like, what are you thinking?
Well, having been fired off my first gig, the Terminator was very fraught. Nobody believed in it. Even up to its release, they didn't believe in it. They had tried to get us to cut off the entire last reel because him coming out of the fire and everything hadn't been done when they saw it. They kind of sandbagged me and said, oh, we know how to watch an unfinished film. I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
everyone
says that. No one.
And they don't. No. They don't. So if anybody, since we're doing this for people coming up behind us, if anybody ever says they know how to watch an unfinished film, it is bullshit. They do not. Unless they're a fellow director and you're very clear about what stage you are in the process. And even then, it's limited. For example, the Fox brass at the time, the management, the executives at Fox, when they first saw Avatar, they could never unsee what for them was the most disastrous and terrifying first screening they had ever had in their lives. It was men in tights. It was people in black marker suits, doing improvisational theater for several hundreds of millions of dollars. And I'm like, no, guys, it's going to get better. Trust me. It's going to look like something. Yeah. Of course, I warned them strenuously against watching the film, and they insisted. I said, look, it's your money.
By the way, they might say that finish sometimes too and be completely panicked, or after an audience preview, and then everyone's got a different story once it comes out.
Oh, man, I tell you. I haven't made that many films. You've probably got more stories than I do in that regard.
I've got a great story, Anthony Minghella. This is the one thing when I was working with Anthony, he told me a story, The Talented Mr. Ripley. Right. I'll never forget this story. And he said he went to Paramount and they did a preview screening and it tested terribly. The end, they were like, and they were like, oh my God, like, what are we going to do?
What are we going to do? That was the first thing out of the Fox executives' mouths after they saw Avatar. They looked like they had just been diagnosed with terminal cancer, and they said, what are we going to do?
That after, I think, before they'd shown it to an audience, saying this is the best movie we've ever made. Oh my God, this is the worst movie we've made. Because, they're just responding, and look, everyone's got a job and they're scared, and it's all insurance, and,
Executives are different than filmmakers.
Yeah.
The filmmaker bets the farm every single time, and an executive is just supervising a slate of films. They're not betting anything. But I always made sure in my later years that they were betting as much as I was. It's like, you'll lose your job if this fails. So?
Yeah.
So? It's a big deal.
But if it doesn't...
That's how I feel every time. Why shouldn't you feel that?
So Terminator comes out, and the decision then, my understanding is that you got approached by two producers and they were pitching you something else. And then you found out they were looking for someone to do a sequel to Alien, or another reinvent
It was actually, I had already been in progress on writing the script for what became Aliens, Alien 2, when I was writing it, before I made the Terminator.
Oh, because Terminator took so long because you had to wait.
I had to convince them to wait for me. I said, all right, I'm going to go become a big shot director, and then I'm going to direct Aliens from my own script. And they were like, yeah, kid, sure, whatever you say. So they agreed that I would direct the film, but of course I'm sure they had 50 escape clauses based on, if I was in any way marketable. But yeah, Walter Hill actually was a stand-up guy around that, because Walter Hill had this partner named David Giler. So they hired me to write the script. And this is a pretty funny story. So I get offered Rambo First Blood Part 2. The same day I get offered Alien 2. So I've already sort of taken Rambo, and then I get my agent calls me 2 hours later and says, and they want you to do Alien 2. I'm like, oh shit. So I called David Giler and I say, David, you know the Carolco guys, right? Andy and Mario? And he said, yeah, sure. I worked with them, whatever. And I said, well, they want me to do the First Blood sequel. They've offered that, and you guys have offered the Alien sequel. I really want to do the Alien sequel for sure, but I kind of really want to do them both. But I don't know how to do this. And he said, don't be an idiot. Just write them both. Just do what I do. Take a lot of drugs and write both scripts. I said, yeah, but I don't take drugs. So what I figured out was, all right, I can write so many pages per day. I looked at the calendar. I had 3 months to write 2 scripts, and then I was going to start on Terminator. So I thought, all right, this is no problem. Divide the time in half, a month and a half on each film. It's X number of working days, X number of pages per day. This is going to work. Mathematically, this is going to work. I just can't stop. I can't take a day off. So I write the first script in a month and a half. All right, I'm good, right? I turn it in. And then they want changes. And then, because what I because I didn't know anything about script deals. You turn in the script, that's the first draft. Then you've got a set and a polish, and that's part of the contract. And it's like, and my agent explained that to me then, like mid-course on my big plan, right? I'm like, oh crap. So I do the changes really fast, turn it back in, they want another meeting. Then I got to, so then another couple weeks go by. I finally get that done. Fortunately, Stallone decides he can write better than me, so he takes it over and rewrites the whole thing. It's like, great. So now I'm down to like 3 weeks to write Aliens. And I'm like, all right, a lot of coffee, and I get like 66 pages in. And I call up David Giler, and I say, so David, I got to start on Terminator prep. And I don't have the script done. And he literally starts screaming at me, and yells, "You'll never work in this town again." I'm like, people really say it?
Yeah, they do.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Except, of course, I was mortified, right? And hangs up on me. I'm like, now I'm really fucked, right? Got fired off my anyway, so I haven't made the Terminator yet, right? I call up Walter Hill. And he said, well, you really fucked this up, didn't you? And I said, well, I don't know. Maybe you want to take a look at this. And he said, send me the pages, right? And I'll call you tomorrow. So he calls me the next day, and he says, all right, we're going to wait for you.
There you go.
And
they did?
And they did.
They did?
And they did. And they gave me the gig. They waited for me.
I mean, there's so many movies to talk about that there's not enough time to do it. But I do when I look at your resume, I laugh because you went from being a guy who made, I think it was like, okay, let me see if I got my dates right. Like Terminator's like 1984.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then Aliens is 86.
Yeah.
And then
The Abyss was 88.
The Abyss is 88, and then
finished in 89, and then Terminator 2.
Terminator 2
finished in 91. Right.
Then True Lies.
And then True Lies 94. Very good.
But I just love it. Look how fast you're making movie after movie.
Yeah. Then I disappeared.
And then Titanic.
Yeah.
So
Titanic was 96. We actually started in 95, and we delivered the film in 97. But the main shoot was in 96, into 97. And then I went exploring for 8 years.
Yeah. So that's where I was getting to. Yeah. So, I mean, I could have an hour podcast on each one of those film experiences. And also, I think it has to bear saying here, because I think one of the reasons that I was so drawn to you and so excited to meet you when we did is because you were putting women at the center of movies and making these iconic female characters well before anyone else was. Right. And in fact, people still aren't doing a great job in film. You continue to do a great job.
I think the women are.
The women are doing a good. Yeah, you are. Yeah, we're doing our best. But this is when people weren't. And even when you were talking about a supporting character, you were still making these kind of iconic female characters. So you have obviously success. And by the way, True Lies is, I know it's going to be controversial, is maybe one of my favorite Jim Cameron movies.
She's self-empowering in that.
I remember where I was when I saw it. I just rewatched it. By the way, you could release that movie today. Still holds up.
Yeah, 3 years ago, not so much. But now that the woke pendulum is going the other way, I think we could make some money with that movie now.
Right back.
It's funny. I never saw it as a misogynist film. Honestly, I mean, it's like, because I think there's a difference between how a character behaves badly in a film and what the film's trying to do. People were reacting to Arnold's character's misogynist behavior.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Wow.
Which, legit, right?
Yeah.
But where does it say that every character has to be a perfect little role model every second of the day in a movie? I mean, she emerges.
Real life is not like that.
Real life's not like that.
But see, it's interesting. I remember the cinema I was in, and all I remember was her. All I remember was seeing this incredible, this woman who found herself essentially, and kicks some ass,
and demands it. Seeks it and ultimately demands it.
And she's still that woman, by the way. Jamie Lee's still.
Oh, Jamie Lee. She's
still kicking ass.
She's on fire, man.
Oh my God.
She's one of my favorite people.
Oh my God.
From afar, I mean, it's not like we're close friends. We don't hang out. We loved working together on True Lies. Loved working together. Yeah. Always looked for something else to do, and it never quite came to be.
So that leads to Titanic, which is your biggest movie. This point. So tell me about that experience and process just a little bit, because I think for anyone, I mean, what's amazing about that movie is it is as relevant to kids, my kids,
Mm-hmm.
I have two 12-year-olds, watching it today. It is the movie they talk about.
Yeah,
the
28
most.
years later. Yeah.
That's incredible.
I think it has a timelessness, you know, because it didn't exist in the pop culture time when it came out. The story had taken place, whatever, 85 years earlier. So, it was 85 years earlier. And so it was already kind of out of time, out of the zeitgeist in a sense, but which is why it's as good today. And I think as much as Leo and Kate have evolved as actors, and we know what they look like now, they're such different people than they were then. Yeah. It's almost like now Jack and Rose are just frozen in amber as those characters, you know. Yeah, and it's still pretty damn popular. We're going to re-release it when it turns 30 in 2 years.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, I know.
But is that the moment, I mean, obviously with The Abyss, and also one of my favorites, but you kind of combine your love for ocean exploration and cinema. So you've done that so many times in your life. Obviously, Avatar again, and your love for the environment, and I mean, so many things. There's so humanity, family. It feels like that is the kind of commonality to me when I look at your work, you know, and I believe the reason that it works so much commercially is because you do touch people's hearts, you know, because I always say,
absolutely.
I say to so many, you could see the most amazing, expensive film. If it does not move you, it doesn't matter.
It's been a
no
waste
one's
of time.
going. It's been a waste of time.
It's been a waste of time.
And I've had those experiences. I've worked with filmmakers who they wanted all the toys and they had them, but they didn't have the heart.
Yeah.
And it's the most kind of heartbreaking thing to watch.
I think I've said this before, if I hadn't made The Abyss, I think I might have bobbled Titanic. Because The Abyss had sort of too many ideas going on, and it didn't stay close to its heartbeat. And I realized that after the fact. You know, there was some big spectacle at the end, but I wasn't feeling what I needed to be feeling. The film peaked emotionally early, and then kind of went into visual, you know. And so when I took on Titanic, you know, Titanic was self-inflicted. Nobody came to me and offered me Titanic. I can tell you exactly the inception of the moment, and it's another one of these strange things.
Not another dream, I hope.
In this particular case, not. When I made The Abyss, I wound up working or learning from Robert Ballard and some of the people at Woods Hole Oceanographic that had found the wreck and then were the initial explorers of the wreck. And I saw some of the robotics that they had used, the little ROV vehicles and their subs and so on. That was all kind of in there, and I loved that stuff. And after I had finished, let me get this exactly right. I had finished T2, and I was just noodling around with some different ideas to do next. And True Lies was evolving in that moment as well. And I was sitting in my living room one day, wanting to put on a movie and just kind of like, you know, pollinate the flowers, so to speak. And I looked, and this was in the days of VHS, and I think later.
Yes, I remember those days.
And I'm going down, and I looked at, I saw a VHS tape of A Night to Remember. I thought, you know, I haven't seen this movie since the 60s. Just pop it in, because I knew the Titanic guys that had found the wreck. And I'm watching the film, and I'm thinking, it would make such a great love story. And you do the wraparound where there's something taking place in the present at the wreck site, and you relate that back through the lens of it. And I loved history. This is something people don't really know about me that much, because I'm known for science fiction and action and all that, but I love history, and we've talked about that. But I was never a big fan of the Titanic story particularly. I wouldn't say I even knew that much about it. And then when I watched Night to Remember, I thought, there's a real story here. There was the background story, and the way I related to it was Dr. Zhivago. You tell a love story of two people against this vast canvas of the Russian Revolution and the wars that followed it. And wow, you could do that. I could do a Dr. Zhivago kind of thing. And I walked down the hall with this in mind, and I came into my kitchen, and this was all in the days of snail mail, and I'm going through my mail, and I find an envelope that it's from a guy I recognize, an underwater camera operator. I open it, and I'm staring at an invitation to a screening of a movie called, it's a film that he's made about the making of a movie called Titanica, which was an IMAX film where they actually went to the real wreck. But what I'm staring at is just black with rivets. It's the side of Titanic in my hand. 5 minutes after I just finished watching Night to Remember, and I open it up, and it's from Al Giddings inviting me to this screening of his film that was a making of film. So I go to the screening, middle of the day over in Burbank someplace, and in it I see that they have gotten these Russian subs to go to Titanic and shoot the Titanic for IMAX. And I happen to know these IMAX movies at the time had budgets of like $3 million. It's like, if they could afford to do that for an IMAX movie, I could certainly afford to do it for a dramatic movie. So the second the lights come up, I go to Al. I say, Al, I got to go meet the Russians. He said, well, yeah, okay. So you like the film? I said, yeah, film's great. I got to go meet the Russians. You know, I was like, right? Just going after the thing like a barracuda. And he said, well, when? I said, now, tomorrow. He said, well, you have to get a visa, you have to be invited, you have to, you can't just go to Russia. I said, all right, well, fine, we'll go next week. Let's get visas. You know, and so next week we went to
You went to Russia?
Went to Russia.
Oh my God.
And I met the guys, and then you don't meet Russians, you drink with Russians. And if you pass that test, then they consider that they've met you and they know you, you know. And I said, I want to go to Titanic. I hadn't even written the story, but I knew it was going to be a love story.
Yeah.
And so then I get that all worked out, and when I pitched it to Peter Chernin at 20th Century Fox, I go into his office, typical, you know, studio CEO's office, and I'm carrying this big book called The Illustrated History of Titanic, full of paintings of Titanic by the best artist who chronicled Titanic, a guy named Ken Marshall, a friend of mine now. And the centerfold, you open the book's this big, you open it up, it's a painting that wide of the Titanic going down and the rockets going off and all the lifeboats rowing away and all the lights on, and you can imagine the band playing and the bow is already underwater, and it's just gorgeous, right? So my pitch consisted of, Peter, bang, book goes on the tape, flip it open to the double truck, show it to him and go, Romeo and Juliet on
there you go.
that.
There you go. Oh my God, that's perfect.
So Romeo and Juliet on that, 5 words.
And said, true to your words, you made that.
Yeah, movie. And he said, how much do you think it'll cost? I said, I can't imagine it costing any more than $85 million. Cut to.
But I love this story too, because, you know, it takes a level of, something more than confidence. I love, someone described you, I was listening to something or reading something, and they said, Jim Cameron is a one of one, and you really are a one of one. But it does, are you at all, like, all this money's being spent, you've got so much pressure.
All artists are one of one.
Yeah, well, that's
right?
true.
I mean, any artist that we respect enough to buy a painting from or buy a ticket to a movie. I totally
agree with that.
They're one of one.
Yeah.
Which is why Gen AI is never going to replace filmmakers. Because Gen AI is everybody. Yeah. Is everybody's experience doing a generic version of the everything, right? Not the unique lens. Yeah.
But there must have been an enormous amount of pressure on you, both, you know, there's obviously, Anthony Miguel used to say, another thing I always remembered, you know, the bigger the budget, the bigger the elephant on my back in some ways, right?
Exactly.
And so I always kind of remember that. At what point...
There's a converse to that as well. It doesn't matter how small the movie is you're making, you're going to go through every single painful step. Yeah. Doesn't matter how small the film is, you still got to imagine it. You got to write the dialogue. You got to, you know, ask the actors to bring the characters to life. You got to shoot it. You got to cut it. You got to score it. You're going to do all the steps. Yeah. Right. The only fundamental difference is your $20 million film can be discarded by the system. Yeah. Your $200 million film can't. No. It will have its day in court. You may fail, but it will have its day.
Yeah, and it could be a make or break moment for someone too. Exactly. Obviously at that point. Right. But at what point, once you see the movie, you're like, we're good. Or good. Not until it comes out.
No, I'll tell you, there's a funny story around that. So the first screening, right? So we sneak off. This was back in the days when we thought we could sneak out to some cinema in Nebraska and get a cold read of the movie, get an honest response, and nobody would know. Yeah. It turned out we were wrong, but we went to the Mall of America in Minneapolis, and we screened the movie, and we did it sort of undercover. People that were recruited on the basis of some kind of historical novel. I can't remember. I think.
Yeah, it was probably like a Jane Austen. I mean, who knows?
Exactly,
right.
exactly, and that's what they thought they were seeing, and we said we'll know if we're going to be successful when they see the title. Title comes up, nothing. Crickets. We look at each other, we're fucked. And I'm slinking down on my chair. Well, it turned out that that in Minneapolis, they actually believed people. And when people told them they were seeing Jane Austen, I can't remember what it was, the cover story was, they were just confused for a second. And they thought maybe it was a trailer or a preview or something. And they didn't know how to react. They didn't think it was the movie. And then after a while, they slowly realized it was in fact Titanic, but then there was no point to applaud. And it turned out they were super, super into the movie, right? And there was this woman sitting behind me, just a Minneapolis or whatever you call them. And she was like a gumball machine, you know, she was like a Pez dispenser. Every time she'd see something, she'd comment on it. So I just kind of like, I get down like this, I get my ear to the crack between the chairs. And the funniest one I remember is like Jack is shaking Rose's hand because she's insulted him, and she says, well, goodbye, you have to go back to, you know, wherever you come from, you know, and he's shaking her hand, and he's sort of challenging her, and she's sort of flustered by it, and the woman behind me is like, but you're not letting go of his hand, are you there, sweetie?
That tells you everything right
there. And I'm like, they get it.
They get it. Oh my God, I got chills. I get chills.
And she just kept Pez dispensing one after another. I'm sitting there cracking up, but I realized that the movie was actually telling the story in the right way.
Yeah.
And the cards were the best anybody had ever seen.
I mean,
they were like 99%,
anyone's gone through
99% or something like that.
Oh,
it was insane.
And what is it like when you go through? I mean, we all say, yes, awards don't matter. I've only won a few in my life. But when you're standing up there and the movie ends up winning Best Picture for an Academy Award, is it like one of the most memorable moments of your life?
It's pretty traumatic. I mean, it's kind of one of those things that it's good to have done.
Yes.
But it's not good going through it.
Yeah.
And it didn't help that the tailor that was supposed to show up beforehand to fit my tux didn't show up. And the waistband was about 3 inches too big, and my wife Linda Hamilton at the time had pinned it for me, and the pin had come out, and I'm actually going up on stage holding my pants so they don't drop down around my knees. That didn't help.
Were your parents there?
Yes.
Was that an amazing moment for them?
I think, yeah, my mom was super proud, and my dad was just always a bit kind of befuddled by the whole thing. You know, he was an engineer, very, very pragmatic, very sort of mathematical, Cartesian.
Yeah.
You know, but I mean, I think he thought it was fun, but you know, he and I never really got along that well, and he was the one that sort of that I thanked because he attempted to thwart everything, and I had to prove it.
Yeah.
Turns out that proving it is not satisfying to your parents.
Yeah.
You just want to be loved by your parents for who you are.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of people say
proving that they're wrong doesn't really work.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And so
although it's better to have proved them wrong than not to have proved them
I was going to say the same thing. There's so many things I remember about what Sydney Pollack and Anthony Minghella taught me. But one of the things that one of Sydney's pet peeves, and I see it all the time today still, where someone will come in, something else we're producing, and say, here's my screenplay, this is going to win awards. And I remember Sydney would just be like, there's the one thing, don't ever say that. Make good work, do good work, love it, put all your heart into it, but don't let that be the thing that you're, kind of flying for. But after that, you take a little bit of time off?
8 years. So that's 97, and then, the awards were in early 98, but, we kind of knew the film was big and it was well received. But it had gotten me really interested in deep ocean exploration. I thought, I could just go do that. I don't have to do another movie if I don't want to.
Yeah.
There is a kind of existentialist, and I mean that in the philosophical sense, existentialist kind of freedom that most people in the film industry don't have because of its momentum. You're not successful, you're rebuffed, you're out, you're rejected, or you're successful and you're in, and then that becomes your life.
That's right.
And I just found that I needed something else to kind of stay sane and balanced, and because I had always wanted to be an explorer, and I kind of had to decide, am I going to do the arts, am I going to write, be a storyteller, or am I going to be a scientist, an explorer, the curious side? I said, fine, I can do anything I want right now. I'm going to go do that. I'm going to go live the other life that I didn't live.
Yeah, but that's what separates you, I think, from a lot of people. Because I think, and as someone who lives and works in Hollywood, it is, you spend so much time trying to get that momentum and trying to find that success that when people they let you keep doing it, it's really hard to stop. And because you think it's like being an actor too. I know a lot of actors like this. They think if they stop, it's going to go away. And I think that's such a kind of inherent fear. But you didn't do that. You have this entire other side of your life, which is explorer. And you went and did that. And did you imagine when you started that journey of ocean exploration, it would take 8 years? Or did you just imagine you would do it?
No, I just thought, well, let's do something. I know the first thing we did, the acorn didn't fall too far from the imagination tree. We went to Titanic. Because I had really gotten bitten by the bug when we did our expedition for the movie. Said, I want to go back. I saw glimpses of things that I want to explore further. So, we built special robotics to be able to go in and search the inside of the ship. Things that were just at the periphery of our lights with the big kludgy prop vehicle that we kind of sent down the grand staircase to make the movie. We glimpsed things. I said, I want to go see what's there. I want to see what's beyond the edge of the headlights. I think that's the driver for most exploration and for pretty much all of science. You want to see what's just beyond the high beams. And so we built these machines. We went back out there, cobbled together the money to do it. National Geographic, Walton Media, shoot in 3D. That was the inception of 3D for me also.
Was that the beginning of your documentary making?
Yes, that was my first documentary, and then I've done 11 documentaries since then. Some I've directed, some I've produced. And loved that experience. Very daunting. I mean, when I was out there, I was literally descending to the wreck in mid-water column out of good communications when September 11th happened. And we knew something was going on up there in the surface world, but we couldn't figure it out based on what we were hearing. Because you get these very broken, fragmentary. It's like in a movie, if you wanted to have like little bits and clues of things. We knew there was some kind of terrorist attack in progress. We had no idea the scope of what was going on. And so we surfaced into a changed world. And it put the whole Titanic exploration thing into this weird, like, why are we wasting our time with this old, rusted chunk of metal at the bottom of the ocean when the world is in upheaval? And it took a while for everything to kind of settle back into some kind of perspective. So that was interesting. And then I thought, oh, this is fun. Let's just do more of this. So part of it was just my nerd side wanting to build more cool machines and cameras and lights and subs and robotics and all that. And the other one was my scientific curiosity side. I wanted to see hydrothermal vents. I wanted to imagine what it might be like on Enceladus or some of these ice moons where there might be hydrothermal vent-fed alien life forms here in our solar system, that sort of thing. I just sort of became rather insatiable for that. And then there was a certain moment, and I was making television in the background. So I had co-created this series called Dark Angel, which ran for 2 years. And doing that kind of in the background of all this other stuff. And so it was a busy time.
But this whole time, were studios coming to you going, what are you doing? We come and make another film with us. Like, there must have been.
Yeah, I think they were kind of afraid of, like, I'd come up with another Titanic and they'd
and guess what? They weren't wrong.
They weren't wrong. It's like definitely a love-hate thing. I'm sure from their perspective with me, it's like, okay.
No, you've made them a lot of money. I'm not sure.
I know, but each time they go through the trials of the damned and they think they're going to lose their jobs. And as opposed to they just kind of mush along doing the usual stuff and they're never threatened that way. And it all happened again with Avatar. I did my last Titanic. I wrote Alita, Battle Angel, in the background of that time period in 04, 05, and I did my last expedition, of that cycle in 05, and I came back from that, and I had commissioned a rewrite of my script for Alita, and it came in and it was pretty good. But at the same time, I thought I'd already looked at my old treatment for Avatar that I had parked in a drawer for 10 years, and it was pretty good. I was like, this is a pretty good story. And so I thought, all right, let's just be really clever. Totally outsmarted myself on this one. Let's be really clever and let's build a system for performance capture and for CG, facial animation, and we'll use it on both movies, and we'll split the cost across the two movies because they both required the same technology, right? So we were going to do this big test of image-based facial performance capture, which we had sort of created in-house. I kind of came up with the idea years earlier when I was at Digital Domain. I said, we're going to put a camera, mount it on a boom, put it in the actor's face, and that's all we're going to do to capture their faces. And we're going to do it all in the downstream algorithm, which is exactly what we wound up doing. But it came time that we had to do a test. And it literally was a coin toss because the test was, is it going to be for Alita or is it going to be for Avatar? So I went through the script for Alita and I was like, well, there isn't really a scene where she's with another CG character. She was always the CG character in a human context. All right, but I got a lot of scenes in Avatar, even though it was only a treatment. So I took the scene where Jake and Neytiri meet, I just wrote it. It was a 4-page scene, right? I said, all right, we'll do this. So it was kind of a coin toss. So then by the time we went through completing that scene and going through all the technical steps, we were already down the path of making Avatar. The decision kind of made itself in a weird way. It's like, I just want to keep doing this. What about you, John? He goes, yeah, let's keep doing this.
Yeah, and I skipped over that actually. Let me go back for a second. So one of the significant things that also happened on Titanic is you met your longtime producing partner, John Landau.
Yeah, I actually had met him on True Lies.
Yeah.
He was the studio guy.
Yes.
So at the age of 28, this guy's running all of physical production for 20th Century Fox. And, he was a go-getter, You could tell he had the spark, the eye of the tiger, And he was supposed to be the guy that kept me in line on True Lies. Good luck with that. Many have tried. I know where the bodies are buried.
Why bother?
There's a lime pit with about 10 of these guys in it. But he and I got along great. And so he actually was the kind of rational guy that was helpful and could not necessarily keep me in line, but like make it all make sense, right? Like how we're going to do this. And so he was so helpful. I hired him after True Lies to be the CEO of the company. And then Titanic came up. But how Titanic got going was kind of interesting as well, because we had, for various reasons, we'd spent money on True Lies already, and so Titanic got pushed behind True Lies. So we wound up making True Lies first. So now I've finished True Lies, and I'm looking at what's next. And I'd kept in touch with my pal in Russia that ran the subs, a guy named Anatoly Sagalevich. And Anatoly and I corresponded all the time. I'm done with True Lies. I'm thinking about what to do next. Titanic was one of a list of possibilities. And I get a fax. You remember fax?
Oh, yeah, many. I remember all of these things.
I get a fax from Anatoly, and it says, and it's almost like when I visualize the fax, that the letters of one sentence glow in my mind. It says, and his written syntax in English was always a bit fragmented because Russian was his first language, and even though he's a scientist and he could speak well, he couldn't write well. He said, sometimes in the life it is necessary to do something extraordinary. And I went, yeah, this doesn't make any damn sense at all. I called up Ray Sanchini. I said, Ray, it's Titanic.
See,
that simple.
those there.
Two minutes.
It's
2 minutes from
words.
the time I got the fax to the time I called Ray and said, it's Titanic. And there was this long pause. And she said, okay.
I knew you were going to say, okay.
Okay.
So jump forward, another big, one would say.
So John came on as producer
Yeah.
on Titanic.
Yeah.
He advocated for it.
Yeah.
He believed in that project.
Yeah, and that's why I wasn't lucky enough to meet John in my life. But one of the things I imagine, because people always say to me, "What does a producer do?" I go, "Well, it's my job to, realize the vision of the storytellers that I want to work with." And I think part of that is just like knowing that person, what's important to you, what is maybe what's different to what's important to another filmmaker, and kind of fostering that and supporting it in every way you can. But you guys make Avatar, which is not. If you'd pitched me that movie, I'd be like, this could go either way. But it is. I remember the moment I saw that movie, and I remember thinking, this is the most kind of spiritual movie about the world that I've ever seen.
No, thanks.
Well, it's true, and now that I know you a little bit, and certainly know about your love for the planet, your love for people, your love for family, it feels like it's kind of all encapsulated, and obviously I think The Way of Water takes that to another another place. The new movie takes that even further, but you are, it does lead me to the thing, because you've made me think. You said something to me when we first met, and it has really stayed with me. There's a few things that people have said to me in my life. Anthony Minghella said to me once, and I live by this: you can enable or disable creative people with your words. Be careful how you use them. Right. I live by it in every part of my life. And you said something which has really stuck with me. This goes to just your love and care for the environment, which is, you put people into two groups: takers or caretakers. And I've not stopped thinking about that. The other thing someone said to me once.
That's true in relationships as well.
Well, I think it's true of everything.
Yeah, it's true of everything we do. We're either takers or caretakers.
Yeah. And I said to someone else once, how do I not fuck up my children? Like, how do you really do the right thing by your kids? And this woman looked at me and she said, you can teach them to be upstanders or bystanders. And that's the same thing in my head. Yeah. Can you just talk, and I know Susie, your wife of many, many, many years, shares that love and passion. And you don't just talk about it, you walk the walk. You you live your life like that. Just talk to me about that not just the passion for the ocean, but the passion for the environment, and how those that philosophy has kind of made its way into the Avatar movies, and I think really shifted people's consciousness.
I think it started very early. I mean, I think, I see myself playing out a lot of themes from my childhood and from my teen years. I think when you're in your teens, you're becoming aware of a greater world, and you're creating your own internal value system that you will live and die by, because everything is so important when you're 15, 16, 17, and your friends are much more important than your parents, and your received wisdom and your received value system is so much less important than the value system you share with your friends. And maybe it was that time as well in the 60s where it was anti-war, civil rights, there was a lot of rioting and protesting going on, and everything was being questioned, so it was almost kind of an existential moment, in the sense of the philosophy of existentialism says you're not going to go with the received structure, you're going to create your own. You're going to create your own ethos, you're going to create your own morality. And what was happening right at that time also was the first major eco-disasters. I remember the big oil spill in Santa Barbara. It was on the cover of Time magazine. It was a dead seagull, I think, or pelican covered in oil. And it was the start of Earth Day in 1970 or 71, I can't remember, but I was a senior in high school at the time, and I was incorporating that into my drawings, into my artwork, into my writing. I wrote a play called Extinction Syndrome, where I said that, basically humans are going to be extinct if we don't stop, if we don't cure the syndrome that we have right now. And by the way, I don't think things have changed very much from that in terms of
we're not listening. I mean,
we're not listening. We're not listening to nature. We're not listening to science. Science is our pathway to truth. Everybody can have an opinion. You can have all these wonderful ideas about what happens in the afterlife and who's in charge of the universe and all that. Ultimately, science is the only place that people can agree and have a consensus. Mathematics and science, and it doesn't matter what culture or religion you're from. That's the place you agree that there is an objective reality. There's an objective truth, not opinion, not belief, you know. And we're not paying attention to that. And of course, science is the study of the natural world, and we're not paying attention to nature. We're ignoring the wisdom of the wisdom keepers, the indigenous people that have lived with and within nature, you know, for thousands and thousands of years. We ignore them, or we displace them, or we destroy them, or we destroy their culture. And we do all that at our peril, you know. And I've felt this, you know, since I was a teen, I guess, since that sort of awakening to the greater world that you have as a teen, and those values are deeply ingrained. You know, one of the big threshold issues on Avatar was when I pitched it to the studio, they read the script, you know, Peter Chernin reads the script, says, yeah, pretty good script. Can you cut out some of that, what did he call it, hippie organic tree-hugging stuff? I said, no, Peter, actually, maybe we're done here, you know, because that's why I want to make the movie. That's the why.
That's exactly,
you know, not to tell a thriller, not to do an action film, not to spend a bunch of money on a bunch of visual effects. That's the purpose. The purpose is to get people enthralled with something that has a greater purpose, you know, and maybe that'll do some good. I don't know. And you know, now having done that and having made that the highest grossing film in history, do I think it did a lot of good? No, not so much. I think it didn't do any harm, and I think it, you know, reminded people of what they know internally to be the truth, but then the day-to-day exigencies of our lives and our economics and everything just eroded all again. So I'll just keep doing the same thing over and over again and hope it works one of these days.
They're gonna listen. I love this figure. I might have it wrong, but you have had the most box office success of any filmmaker living. I think it is something like $8.7 billion in box office.
I don't know.
I'm thinking we tip it across 10 with the next.
Let's talk again next year and see where we are.
Next year, it's going to be well over 10. You heard it here first.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
The world desperately needs this movie. And what is, like, you've done so many things, and I think one of the reasons that, I mean, you might think, I always think, something happened to me recently. I'm 54. I just feel like I'm just starting. There's so much I want to do. Right. It's a terrible feeling because I'm like, oh, the clock's ticking.
Yeah.
But what is next for you? What gives you joy?
That is a very interesting question. You know, look, it would be very easy for me to just continue on with the Avatar films. It's all mapped out, they're all written, they're all designed and all that. I will do that in some form. Yeah. But there may be a way to step back such that I can do some of the other things I want to do as well. Or I could just go exploring again.
Oh, please don't. I'm like, please don't go exploring. You've done so much already. The world needs more of your incredible storytelling.
Well, I think it's, you know, I'm 71, so I have to look at...
That's the new 60. That's 60 now.
I feel pretty good, you know, but you know, man proposes and God disposes, right? So, or what is it? You know, man plans, God laughs.
I don't believe it.
So anyway, well, I'm an atheist anyway, but the point is, you know, you do have to prioritize. Yeah. And you know, there are stories that I want to tell, some of my own. There are emotions I want to explore in films and themes I want to explore, the things that I can't do within the Avatar framework. We managed to throw a pretty broad net with Avatar and do a lot of, get to some really interesting emotional and psychological places, as well as obviously all the visuals. But there are other things I do want to do. So I think it's going to be an assessment period, you know, after this film comes out. Just take stock, prioritize, you know, it's an empty nest for Susie and I now, so how much of the sustainability work are we able to do and travel to do, you know. But I always think, you know, curiosity will take me where it needs to take me.
Exactly. On that note, we always ask people 2 questions at the end. And by the way, I could talk to you for another 10 hours. Well, so we've been talking. We'll do another. This will be the first in a series for anyone listening. But I always ask, what would you say to your 18-year-old self now, knowing what you know?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm completely hypothetical, but when I think of myself at 18, there are so many things I could have skipped and just gotten on with it. But on the other hand, could I have? You know, I wasn't trying to be a filmmaker when I was 18. I couldn't imagine that. Was it? You know, I mean, I was working in a machine shop and going to school part-time and studying physics and astronomy and philosophy and things like that. I mean, my brain was wide open. I needed to, the smartest thing to do would be just shut up, not say a damn thing.
That's what I would say if I looked at you. That's what I would say to your 18-year-old self.
It would have been a little early in life, but I would have probably had some marriage advice.
Okay, yeah. But again, everything leads to the right place eventually.
I guess.
You know?
I guess it's the way in which to think of a relationship as being not conditional.
Yeah.
You're not conditioned on the immediate response, not conditioned on the recent behavior, but you know, that there's a commitment.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to learn that one.
Yeah, that's okay.
I eventually learned it.
Okay, we're all still learning, Jim.
I got there. Yeah, work in progress,
me
as
too.
Will Smith would say.
And my second and last question is there for you a moment or a person that really you felt changed your life? And it can be more than one person. For me, it was a teacher when I was 13.
Teacher, anybody that I could learn from. For example, Gail Hurd, I learned a lot from Gail. My high school biology teacher, who came up to me in the hall apropos of nothing one day and said, I just looked at your IQ test scores. You have unlimited potential, and walked away. I'm like,
that you never forget.
Fuck, no pressure, you know. But he also allowed us to start our own theater arts group. We didn't have a theater arts program at the school, so we created our own and did it all after hours. Yeah. And we'd stay at school for an extra 4 hours every day to do this thing. Yeah. We were putting more energy into our after-school program than we were into our studies. Yeah. And he organized that, you know. And I always wanted to go back and thank him. I mean, he died, you know, just a few years later of AIDS, actually, in the early days of the AIDS epidemic. But so I never really got to thank him.
Yeah, I love that. I always say one teacher can change your life, because they did for me.
He did. Mr. McKenzie definitely changed my life. Absolutely. You know, and this is one of the amazing things about life. You can be changed for the worse by a single person, interaction with a single person. You can be changed for the better. But ultimately, you're still always yourself. Yeah. You know, and so that whatever potential is there, it's up to you to find it.
On that note, thank you, Jim.
Yeah, this has been cool. I really admire what you're doing. You know, trying to show people the possibility.